What do you do when you want bread, but you are on a keto diet, you're gluten intolerant, and you're dairy intolerant? What do you do? Forget about bread? No, you watch this video, because today I'm going to teach you how to make bread rolls that are keto, gluten-free, and dairy-free. These rolls are amazing. You can do so much with them. You can make them small enough to make a dinner roll. You can make them big enough to be a sandwich roll or a hamburger bun. Or you can shape them long ways and make them into a sub-sandwich roll. I mean, these are amazing rolls. They taste so good. They're light and fluffy. You wouldn't even know that they are keto, gluten-free, and dairy-free. And they're easy. You know me, I love easy. So if you want a printable version of this, you can check out my website at janetsdeliciouslowcarbkitchen.com. You can find a printable version of this and other goodies there for you. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, while you're down there clicking the subscribe button, hit that little notification bell that's right next to it. That way you can be notified every time I put out a new video. And while you do that, let's get cooking. First off, we need to create a hot box in our oven so we have a nice, warm, moist place for our rolls to rise in. So place one oven rack on your lowest track in your oven without it touching the heating elements. Then place a second rack on the next track above the lowest. Make sure you keep enough space in between the two racks so that you can put a 3-quart casserole dish. Preheat your oven to 210 degrees. Pour 6 cups of very hot water into a 3-quart casserole dish. Place the casserole dish on the lowest rack in your oven and close the oven door to create a warm, moist area. This is where we're going to put our rolls to rise. Line one large baking sheet with parchment paper. Then generously spray 3 wide-mouth mason jar lids with cooking spray. Place the mason jar lids upside down, spaced apart on the baking sheet. Then set the baking sheet aside. We'll be using that in a minute. To make the buns, in a large mixing bowl, combine 3/4 cup of almond flour, 2½ tablespoons of coconut flour, 1/8 cup of finely ground flax seeds, make sure they are nice and finely ground, 1½ tablespoons of finely ground psyllium husk powder, make sure it is the powder and make sure it's very finely ground. We want as little grit as possible in the rolls. Add 1 teaspoon baking powder and 1 1/4 teaspoon of instant yeast. Whisk these all together until they're fully combined and there are no lumps in the flour. Add 1/2 plus 1/8 teaspoon of salt and whisk it in until it's fully combined with the rest of the dry ingredients. I always add my salt last when I'm using yeast because too much salt at once directly put onto yeast runs a risk of killing your yeast instantly. It doesn't always do it, but there is a chance that it can. So rather than take that chance, I always whisk all my dry ingredients together with the yeast and then add my salt afterwards. Once the yeast is all mixed in with the other ingredients, the salt doesn't bother it. It's only when you add it directly on top of it. Once the dry ingredients is all whisked together really well, set it aside. In a large mixer bowl, add 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of the oil of your choice. I'm using avocado oil. You can use any type of oil you want. Just keep in mind that some oils have stronger flavors than others. The avocado oil that I use and olive oil, they have stronger flavors, so if you do use those, your rolls are going to have a slight flavor from the oil. I don't mind that. I personally like that in these rolls. But if you just want more of a plain tasting roll and you don't want that oil taste in it, then use a neutral flavor oil like coconut oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, an oil that doesn't have a strong flavor if you don't like that oil taste. Add 10 tablespoons of warm water. Make sure this is warm. If it's not warm, your yeast will not become active and your rolls will not rise. So the water needs to be around 122 to 130 degrees. The temperature of your dough and of your water is very important when you are using yeast. If your water is too cold, your yeast will not become active and your rolls won't rise. If the water is too hot, it will kill the yeast and your rolls won't rise. So really make sure you get that water the right temperature. It should be warm to the touch, not burning your fingers. Carefully add your dry ingredients to your wet ingredients. Make sure you go slowly so your dry ingredients don't fly all over the place. Beat the ingredients together on low for about 30 seconds or until all the dry ingredients are wet and everything is combined. Scrape down the sides of the bowl if needed and push all the dough to the center of the bowl. Change out the paddle attachment on your standing mixer to a dough hook attachment if you have it. If you don't have it, it's okay. The paddle attachment does just fine. I always like to use the dough hooks because it creates more air in the dough, which as a general rule makes for a fluffier roll. But if you don't have a dough hook, it's okay. Your paddle attachment will be fine and you'll still have great tasting rolls. Beat on high for 3 minutes or until the dough is combined and comes together into a ball and is nice and stretchy. Again, scrape down the sides of the bowl if needed and push all the dough to the center of the bowl. Massage the dough in your hands for about 10 to 15 seconds just to make sure that everything is fully combined and that all the ingredients are smooth and the dough is stretchy. Then scoop the dough out into either 1/4 cup, 1/3 cup, or 1/2 cup portions. The size of the scoop depends on what type of rolls you're wanting to make. If you're just wanting to make dinner rolls, then 1/4 cup portions is good, which will give you actually about 4 rolls. So you'll actually need 4 mason jar lids if you're doing dinner rolls. If you're wanting sandwich rolls, then scoop the dough out in about 1/3 cup portions, which you'll need the 3 mason jar lids for that. It makes 3 sandwich rolls. If you're wanting to use this for burger rolls or sub sandwich rolls, then scoop it out a 1/2 cup and it'll only make 2. It'll make either 2 sub rolls or 2 hamburger rolls, whichever one you're wanting to do. Once the dough's all scooped out, then lightly dampen your hands and shape each scoop into a tight ball. Now, if you're making sub sandwich rolls, of course, you're not going to put it into a ball. You're going to put it into a log. And if you do decide to make this in sub sandwich rolls and you don't have a hot dog bun holder to mold it in, then you can check out my website and the article on how to make foil holders for sub sandwich rolls. I'll put a link in the description for that for you. Once you have each of the portions shaped into a ball or log, whatever you're using them for, then place the balls back into the center of the rings. If you want a flatter top like they have on hamburger buns, then just slightly flatten the tops. Don't flatten them all the way, but just slightly give it a flat top so you'll have the shape of a hamburger bun. If you don't mind the high rounded top, then just leave it as it is. I usually just leave it as it is if I'm making it for rolls. If I'm doing hamburger buns, then I'll flatten it down just a tiny bit. But either way, if you don't flatten it, you're going to have a rounded top. If you do flatten it, you're going to have a slightly flat top. Once you have your dough shaped and inside the rings, then place a piece of parchment paper over the tops of the buns. Then lightly dampen a clean kitchen towel with warm water and place the damp kitchen towel over the parchment paper that's on the rolls. Now make sure the towel is warm and make sure it is just damp. You do not want a sopping wet towel in there. You just want it damp. You just want it enough to make sure that it keeps moisture locked into your rolls. Once you have the rolls covered, then place them into your warm oven, close the door, and let the rolls rise for about 1 hour. Make sure you do not open that oven door at all during the hour because that will let the moist air out and it'll interrupt the rising process. So 1 hour is all you need for it. So just be patient and let it rise. Once the rolls have risen, remove the towel and the parchment paper from off the rolls. Then place the rolls back into your oven and preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Make sure you leave the dish of water and the buns inside the oven while your oven is preheating. You do not have to take them out and wait for it to preheat and then put them in. You keep them in there so they stay nice and warm and moist. Once the oven is fully heated, then bake the rolls for about 10 to 12 minutes or until they're lightly golden and a tester comes out clean. Make sure you do not start your timer until your oven is fully heated. It needs to fully come up to that 350 degrees, then you set your timer. Do not set it before then. After the buns are baked, remove them from the oven and let them sit on the pan for about 15 minutes so all of the ingredients can fully set together. Do not try to remove them before 15 minutes. You want to make sure all the ingredients is nice and set before you try to move them. After they've set for 15 minutes, then transfer them to a wire rack and let them cool completely. Make sure you let them cool completely before you try to slice them. I've said it before, I'll say it again and again. Gluten-free baked goods are fragile when they are warm. So make sure you let them cool completely before you try to slice them. Once they're cooled completely, if you're not going to use them right away, then store them in an airtight container at room temperature until you're ready to use them. If you are going to use them right away, place them on a plate, slice them open, put some butter on them if you're going to just use them for a dinner roll, or top them with some meat and cheese and whatever toppings you want. Then eat and enjoy. And that's our recipe of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want to see more videos like this, then click the thumbs up like button, click that subscribe button, leave me a comment if you want to. Let me know if there's any recipes that you'd like to learn how to make, and I'll do what I can to get those out there for you. And as always, keep cooking.